for. But let's get to the next group. And the next group is a group that we feel like doesn't get a lot of love based off of their previous performances or injuries or whatever it may be. And it's kind of like a stock market, Scotty. You want to buy the dip. There's a lot of players out there that maybe aren't getting a lot of hype that probably should be. And there's a lot of players that just people are going to just pass off, push off on other people. And it's like, this is where you take advantage and get some of the best value players in the draft. This is similar to sleepers, but like more of guys that just have been good or will potentially have those years that'll just say, you know what? I'm not giving up on this guy. I am not going to give up on him quite yet. He still has something left in the tank, and I'm going to take a chance on him this year, and you probably won't be upset if you do, because they might break out this season. So, Scotty, I'll let you lead off with this one. Did you have any on your radar that are kind of in that category of don't sell out on them yet, buy the stock while it's low when no one else is thinking about them?
I mean, if we're going, I'll go deep into it a little bit here. I got a couple wide receivers in mind that are, one's been injured for what it seems like the last 8 seasons, Chris.
I know where you're going with that one.
But was elite when he was healthy.
This is Michael Thomas.
It's Michael Thomas. Gets a new quarterback with Derek Carr. I mean,
this is the perfect example for this. This is the perfect example for this, because it's like nobody wants him. He's going to drop so far, and the value's going to be like absolutely, the expectations are just going to be there where he's just not going to play. But yet you were going to take a chance on him, and he's going to pan out. Yeah.
I mean, him and another guy a guy that came off a bad injury, but Dallas paid this guy in the offseason, even off that injury, for a reason last year. He came back midseason, really didn't do much, but love him as an option. He also went to my university, so I'm riding with, like, and listen, the Cowboys added Brandon Cooks. Everyone wants to talk about that, and don't get me wrong, Brandon Cooks could have a very nice year to go along with CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup, for where he's getting drafted, is ridiculous.
Love Michael Gallup.
Low. Dude, Michael Gallup's he's so good. And he's so good down the sideline on like a go route, and him and Dak have played years together where they know the timing. He's coming off that ACL, came back mid-year last year, wasn't healthy, it was clear, wasn't ready to go. He's going to be ready to go this year. I think Michael Gallup and Michael Thomas are guys to certainly look at based off of where they're getting drafted.
Just buy the stock of all the Michaels. Just get all the Michaels.
All the Michaels.
if their first name is Michael and they're a receiver, just draft them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to.
I don't see why you wouldn't.
I don't hate that though, because like again, you could get lost in translation in Dallas with all the weapons they have there. CeeDee Lamb obviously is a guy that always gets the attention, and you don't ever really think about those secondary options. But Dak loves to spread the ball around, and Gallup was one of his go-to options quite a bit before he got hurt. So I like that option quite a bit. But Michael Thomas is one of those that I'm still like, oh man, you take like a late round flyer, but you could be getting that good value. I mean, he's been practicing a little bit more recently, which is great. He's cleared. So he's been out for like 2.5 years. You have enough energy and stamina now to last, right? You would think.
Yeah.
But I mean, Derek Carr, I think that's having a more accurate quarterback with a big receiver like that, I think could be a big addition for Michael Thomas, for him to be able to thrive in that offense. So I don't hate that either. That name, Michael Thomas or Michael Scott, paging Michael Scott. Yeah. All right. Let me dive in. Now this could actually be buying stock low on all the Rams. I could buy stock on Stafford. Like he was hurt last year, back elbow injury. Like back and elbow injuries are tough for quarterbacks. Let's just be real. Higbee is a beneficiary. I think they had a bad season last year. No one is buying in on the Rams. Van Jefferson, but Cam Akers is an interesting one. Cam Akers is a terrifying one that I feel like he's literally had a roller coaster of a career. Solid rookie season, blew out his Achilles then shortly after that. Then he comes back, he splits with Henderson, looks awful. Then he left the team for a little bit, the fit, the cohesiveness with Coach Sean McVay. Then he comes back after Stafford goes down with two no-name quarterbacks. Well, and then you had what's his name that is now in Tampa, Baker come in, and he killed it when those down the stretch when nobody was playing in the last few games of the season. He was a running back 5 in points per game when it came to those last 5 games. He averaged 17 carries, 85 yards, and a touchdown every game. 90% of the carries were inside the 5-yard line. Zach Evans and Kyron Williams are the only 2 other guys there. Who else? They're not going to give the ball to those guys. There's massive value, I think, with what you're getting. He might get 18 to 20 carries a game. And if you're getting him in your 6th round or 7th round, you're getting value. So I'm buying stock while it's low in some of these Rams. Like I said, Stafford, Higbee, Van Jefferson, I feel like they have, you also look at their offensive line last year, all hurt. They had tons of different combinations of offensive lines that weren't meshing. There was just a perfect storm last year in LA that I think Cam Akers is forgotten. No one's going to remember him. No one's going to get excited about him, but he's going to have a decent season. Don't give up on him. Don't do it.
Don't forget Kupp. We won't forget Kupp.
We won't forget Kupp.
He's not exactly a sleeper. He's still wide receiver 3.
Buying the dip on one of the best receivers like Kupp, I don't think that's a dip.
He was wide. He's still wide receiver 3.
But
and if you want to take him higher, go for it.
You can't have. It's only going to go up for the Rams, right?
You would think. Obviously, I have concerns with Stafford in that back and what the deal is there. But yeah, it has to. And Akers was still kind of coming off an injury from the prior year, I believe.
He just never
where he played in the playoffs, but then he gets beat up from time to time. But Akers, talent wise, is there, and he's the lead back certainly in that situation. So,
I gave up on Cam. I don't trust McVay's running back. There's only one running back there. He's it.
They're not going to Henderson anymore. I think they're gonna ride Cam.
They're gonna ride it, and
the ramp.
He's gone.
Henderson is gone.
He's not. Henderson's not there. I don't think. There's only. Like I said, it's only. What's his name? It's Zach Evans and Kyron Williams, which I've never heard of either of those 2 guys doing anything in the NFL quite to this point, right? So, you have to. And again, when things were down the stretch, when things got he was so good. He just needs consistency. That's it. So there you go. Cam Akers, buy the stock while it's low. All right. So that being said, Scotty, who's your next? Who you buying stock in?
I have different guys. I'm trying to decide what position I want. We've talked about a running back. We've talked about a wide receiver. So am I going to go QB or am I going to go tight end here? I'm gonna go.
Scotty buys Josh out.
I have one at both, but I'm gonna go QB here, Chris. And this is a QB that I believe finished QB 5 last year in the NFL, and he's getting drafted somewhere around 15th among QBs this year. No one believes in him, despite the year that he had last year. Do you know who I'm talking about, Chris, based off that info?
So
I believe he was QB 5 last year. He is QB 15 or around there this year.
And he got hurt, you said?
No, he wasn't hurt last year. Fully healthy.
AFC or NFC?
NFC. You might want to look to the chat. They might help you out. SCG's got you.
Gino. Is it Gino? Is it Gino?
It's Gino, dude. Geno Smith was QB 5 last year. He's getting his second year in the system. That team's still going to be, probably only better. we've seen clearly at this point, Chris. Well, maybe not clear, but we've seen what the head coach in Seattle can do at the quarterback position to help their quarterback out.
Well,
right?
I mean,
Geno Smith. I didn't believe in Geno last year. I don't think anybody believed in Geno. A lot of people thought he wasn't going to be the starter. I didn't think he was going to be the starter, Chris. I thought it was going to be Drew Lock. And then he balls out. He's QB5 in fantasy last year.
Crushed. Well, and he's got weapons.
Like, so if you're wanting a guy, like, I'm not saying take him at 5. Like, don't take him as the 5th overall quarterback.
You're just buying stock while it's low.
Somewhere around 10 instead of 15. I'm totally comfortable with. I mean, that's a great pick with Geno. Right now, Deshaun Watson's going 9. What did Deshaun Watson do last year? Nothing. I
mean, even Seattle fans weren't buying in. So SDG says the same thing. He's like, "Oh, there's no way even prove us wrong." Like, nobody.
Yeah. And he gets the new deal in Seattle. So they believe in him. You know, Pete Carroll believes in him. They're gonna ride with him. That offense is gonna put up numbers. Like, I thought it was gonna be a terrible team last year. We all thought Seattle was gonna be one of the worst, probably 3 teams in the NFL last year. And then they go and make the playoffs, Chris. So, they're right there. Geno Smith's gonna play. I think gonna ball out again. Only gonna get better. So, there's a guy that is getting drafted way later, based off of really his name than he should. Like, Anthony Richardson's getting taken by a lot of people earlier. Like, a lot of people are taking Anthony Richardson before Geno Smith, and that's just wild to me. You have the guy that was QB5 in the NFL last year, and you're taking a raw rookie that, like, didn't even put up, stats at Florida. Don't get me wrong, I love the upside of Anthony Richardson, but let's pump the brakes a little bit here.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, like, when you get past those top 3 or 4 quarterbacks, right, then you're kind of in a range where you can kind of wait a little bit, right? You can wait a little bit, see what ends up falling to you. There could be a lot of value at a couple of different positions, especially quarterback. And that's when you jump on a guy like Geno, where no one really thinks of Geno. You maybe got the people who are maybe reaching on Aaron Rodgers in the new Jets system. You have, some other players and quarterbacks that you might be reaching on as well, that you're just like, quarterbacks are coming off the board a little bit. I need to take care of my quarterback. So that's when you get the Herberts and some of these other guys that are, fine, they're going to be good. But at the same time, you're getting really good value with a guy like Geno. So don't.
And I forgot to mention, which STG kind of references here. Let's not forget, they have 3 legit wideouts now. I mean, they take Jackson Smith and Jigba, the top wideout most perceived in the draft this year out of Ohio State. Phenomenal route runner.
Lockett, Metcalf.
Go along with Lockett and DK Metcalf, like 1 to 3. I don't know if there's a better 1 to 3 in the NFL for him to, throw the ball around to. SCG does say, like, Carroll's old school smash mouth, but let's keep in mind he does have these weapons at wide receiver, and I don't think they're planning on just running the ball all the time when they take a wide receiver in the first round of the draft. And 2, even with that smash mouth, that didn't prevent Russell from having some monster fantasy football seasons when they were, even though Russell wanted to throw the ball 20 more times a game than he did, he still was prolific in fantasy. So,
and not to mention Kenneth Walker in the backfield, and then they drafted another kid too,
Zach Charbonnet.
So they have a couple weapons in the back. I mean, they're built nicely out there for what the expectations were to what they are now. Not even close. So STG, they're looking good. All right. So next up on my list, I got a receiver. And this guy is kind of a guy with like potentially a high ceiling that no one is thinking about. And that's Gabe Davis of Buffalo. Now, Gabe Davis, he was hurt. He got hurt. And he was really bad last year, right? He had 8 games under 8 points last year. But think about this. Going back to before the injury, he had that, his stock was at the all-time highest after that catch with the Chiefs playoff game, right? Stock was through the roof.
More than one catch. He had a lot of catches.
Well, and all the touchdowns and everything else. Like he was that.
I will never draft him just because of that.
Yeah, you have that PTSD from that playoff run, but the expectations were just too high going into last season, and like after the injury and everything else, and like the expectations were just too high. But now the expectations are almost too low. Like, keep in mind, he's the deep threat for the Bills, right? He's like that high risk, high reward. He's the down threat for Allen to throw downfield. Like, to be able to get him late in drafts where he could be just that huge flyer that you can just rely on to get a couple big plays a game, I just feel like the stock is just too low for like a guy like Gabe Davis in an offense that Allen's going to want to throw the ball. He's going to want to stretch the field. The Bills, I mean, their running game is what it is, but you still rely heavily on that offense to go through the air. And I think that Gabe Davis could have given his stock at the moment. You buy as low as you possibly can because that's where he's at. No one thinks about him. And he could be potentially a nice player to push the ball downfield throughout the course of the season, should he stay healthy.
Yeah. My only point is what SUG just said. They drafted Dalton Kincaid at the end of the first round, tight end, to add to. So you're going to have 4 legit options with Kincaid. I think they'll play a lot of 2 tight end sets with Dawson Knox, because why wouldn't you still play Dawson Knox? It's pretty solid.
Still waiting for Dawson Knox to blow up. I'm still
he may never blow up, but he's definitely solid. I mean, he's a good weapon to have and solid in the pass game to go along with Diggs and your boy Gabe Davis. I mean, you're right. Like, you from sky high last year, now he's dropping. He probably is dropping too hard because people are just mad at how bad he was last year.
He was badly. If you had him, you were upset.
ADP. The people that were drafting were basing it off of almost basing it off of one game though. So they have their own selves to blame a little bit on that last year. But you're right. He's a boomer. I mean,
high risk, high reward.
With him, the problem with him is like he might have some like phenomenal games, but because he's more of a deep option, a deep threat, he maybe doesn't get a ton of targets. He might have some games where he's awful for you, but other games where he wins you that week. So boomer bust.
Yeah, he let a lot of people down. GG.
G-girl, I know, I hear it.
He let a lot of people down. Believe me.
Didn't make it happen like people thought. But now he's got to make it happen. And you got the whole, I still don't know. Do we know like the whole Stephon Diggs situation in Buffalo?
Well, and that's another thing too.
He's not going to play, but like he's clearly not happy over what exactly, I don't know. But I mean, I'm sure he'll put up monster numbers. He's Stephon Diggs and it's Josh Allen, and that pass game is prolific, and their run game. Yeah. We'll see what their run game can do. Obviously, they don't have one of their weapons, to Naheem Hines. Unfortunate accident off the field with just chilling on a jet ski. But you still have James Cook, and they did pick up Damian Harris. So we'll see what their run game can do. But
no, just real quick in the chat. Yeah. Josh Allen, Gabe was trash, including Josh Allen. Gabe was trash last year. And like a lot of people, this is what I'm talking about. This is the whole point of this particular fantasy focus, is the fact that we're buying the dip. He's so low that no one is going to take a flyer on him. So that's the whole point of this. Like, even if he has a handful of games and he's coming off your bench and he's giving you some, I mean, that's still worth something to get value out of from a guy that, no one is thinking about because of how bad he was. And like, again,
it's like a team in the NFL when you're betting on it that has lost large their last 4 games. They're the worst team in the NFL, and you look at their next week and they're 14.5 point dogs.
You buy the dip.
you want to buy the dip, but you're terrified at the same time. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's so hard. You're like, I can't bet. This team is almost unbettable. But that's how everyone's thinking. So if you're gonna bet that game, you bet on that 14.5 point dog, whether you like it or not. You don't ever take a 14.5 point favorite in a game on the, or betting wise.
Yeah.
So you either take that person or that team or whatever. So it's kind of like that. Like they burned you and they're so but you got to think about like everyone's thinking that way, and maybe they're too emotional with it and not thinking with their heads.
Exactly. So who do you got next then? Who is the player that everyone's thinking the same exact thing about, where they're just like, nah, this guy is not
this one's a guy, and I don't remember, maybe we talked about him last week because we were talking about players that change teams in the offseason.
Yep.
This guy did. We haven't talked about the tight end position. This dude got paid at the tight end position, and last year he was like tight end, drafted, and I don't know where he finished. I don't know where he finished, but he was drafted tight end 4 or 5, somewhere in that range. Now he gets into free agency. He signs a big contract with a team that maybe has a less prolific offense perceived and probably does. Now he's closer to like tight end 12 in these average draft positions. So I think Dalton Schultz is going to be better than tight end 12. Dalton Schultz is a very, very good tight end. He's in Houston now. He gets the payday. I think tight ends are a rookie quarterback's best friend. You have CJ Stroud, probably, the number 2 overall pick, probably starting there in Houston. I think a young quarterback, you're looking at, over the middle, short, easy completions, get the yardage when you can. Let's not overdo it. Let's not put, too much on the plate. And I think the tight end's a young quarterback's best friend.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's agreeing in the chat. Dalton Schultz is very good, safe. Just hope Stroud can get him the ball. True. Yeah, I think and that's the thing too. I mean, there's a couple tight ends I think that could, I almost threw Pitts on here too. By the way, Kyle Pitts as a tight end with buying his stock as low as it possibly could be, because you have a nice young quarterback there that could rely on him quite a bit, which is in that same category of just a young kid relying on a safety blanket each and every single week. So Kyle Pitts is actually kind of like one of my guys too that I have on my periphery of keeping an eye on his value.
And I thought about that. My only issue is that it's the same coaching staff that apparently hates Kyle Pitts.
Yeah,
they just
exactly.
With a fiery passion for some reason.
Why do they hate?
Like, hey, let's take a tight end, number 5 overall in the draft 2 years ago, and then has a great rookie year, and then we come in and we're like, no, we hate you. Everyone wants to blame it on Mariota, and maybe it is. Maybe Ritter will be a renaissance for Kyle Pitts, but and part of me is, Chris, I was burned by Kyle Pitts last year. I had Kyle Pitts in a couple leagues, and I mean, he was tight end 3 for me last year, and he ended up being tight end 23, I believe. And I don't even know if there are that many tight ends that got fantasy points last year, Chris. So it's like a fresh wound for me where I don't know if I can make that leap. But you're right, it is a upside. I think he could. It wouldn't shock me if he finishes tight end 2, and it wouldn't shock me if he finishes tight end 15.
It's and everywhere in between.
Because the tight end position is so, you look at it and you're just like, can I trust this guy? Can I trust this guy?
After Kelsey,
can I trust this guy?
After Kelsey, you're asking that question. It doesn't matter. There's only one.
Was beat up last year. He's tight end 2. TJ Hawkinson, everyone's like, well, in Minnesota, you did so much better. No, he really didn't. I mean, George Kittle, we talked about, everyone loves the name George Kittle, but
I'm selling my stock.
Does he produce enough? Darren Waller, injury prone as well. New system. We'll see what happens there. I like Goddard quite a bit, actually. I think Goddard, but you have a ton of guys to throw to in Philly, so who knows? Evan Ingram had a great year, but he's had a ton of terrible years prior to that in New York, so I know it was a good year in Jacksonville, but I could easily see Evan Ingram fall off the map next year. Yeah, obviously, Jacksonville adds Calvin Ridley, so does that take away from some of Ingram's touches? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think tight ends are interesting because it's that's kind of your value plays, right? I mean, outside of Kelsey, you're trying to find the value. And so, that's the point where you were trying to, that kind of goes into this category here of buying low, is like you're buying with the hope that there's value there, knowing that the difference in tight ends, once you get past the first maybe tier 1 and tier 2, is not going to be that big of a difference. Like, they're all going to be about the same. So might as well take a shot on maybe a guy that, like, a Pitts, or like a who are we talking about? Schultz, and like guys like that, where it's just like, why not take a flyer and potentially get some really, really good value? So
Cole Kmet just got paid yesterday, but like, I don't know what he did last year. Cole Kmet was a guy everyone loved in fantasy drafts last year with Chicago, didn't produce that much at all, and then he got a payday from Chicago. So they must still like him a lot. Devil Doc, what about Freiermuth? Freiermuth was like literally the next one after Evan Ingram on this list I'm looking at of like rankings. Freiermuth's like kind of steady, solid, but not spectacular kind of guy. I don't know.
He's the boring guy that I feel like is actually boring.
Nicholas said Mark Andrews is in the question mark. My question mark there is like, can Lamar stay healthy? And Mark Andrews was beat up a little bit last year, so that combination is the question mark there. If Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson are healthy all year, I've said it 8,000 times on this stream, Lamar Jackson only likes to throw to the middle of the field, so Mark Andrews is his best friend.
It fits
for forever. But I do have a sleeper though, ironically, at wide receiver for Baltimore. I've heard reports out of camp, Chris. And you have a wide receiver core. You sign OBJ.
Yep.
You have Rashad Bateman, former first round pick. They draft Zay Flowers in the first round this year. Zay Flowers is reportedly the best wide receiver in camp, and it's not close. This isn't breaking news, SDG.
Breaking news.
I just saw reports out of their camp that Zay Flowers, and maybe it's BS, I don't know. But I love Zay Flowers a ton coming out of this. Coming into this draft, and I've heard so far in camp he looks like the best wide receiver on that roster. So, and he's going certainly behind both OBJ and Bateman in most drafts. So Zay Flowers is a dude, maybe one of those rookies to target really, really late.
And he's playing for his 18 other siblings or so, whatever he has. Doesn't he have like crazy amount of siblings in his family?
I don't. He could. I don't know that situation.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard some great things about that too. Zay was he's one of the guys that we highly touted in our draft preview. Like, he is absolutely a dynamic player that I think can slot in really, really nicely. Oh, he had 13 siblings growing up. Sorry, only 13.
Don't oversell it, Chris.
Don't oversell. I'm sorry. I got a little egregious with my projection of what I remember his sibling count being, but 13. So there you go. Laporta in Detroit is going to be a sleeping tight end, says Nicholas.
Well, someone wake him up.
Wake him up.
He's got a football game to play.
True. Jeez. Yeah.
True. Can't have a guy sleeping. He's playing in 42 days, 20 hours, and 31 minutes. Someone get him ready.
People sleep on Patty, but the safety blanket for KP is boring. But yeah. And yeah, that's fair. True. All right, so my one of my last ones here that I want to cover here is we said Jerry Jeudy was on a graphic, Scotty. He might have been, he might have not been, but here we go. Jerry Jeudy with my Broncos, baby. Let's go. No, I just
year in a row.
We're buying the dip on Jerry Jeudy. Like the offense for the Denver Broncos.
I'll leave it.
It was one of the worst offenses that we've witnessed in recent memory, Scotty. Even you thought that this was like what's happening here. The Denver Broncos shouldn't be this bad, and this is an awful situation, right? So, Jerry Jeudy's got some injuries, things along those lines, but here's the thing. The fact that he creates separation is something that really matters when it comes to especially a guy getting the timing right with Russell Wilson. Short passes. We don't know if Russell is going to be able to extend the ball downfield like he always does, but the PPR side of things, and then also just pure receptions and being able to separate from the line of scrimmage, I think is a big aspect of what Sean Payton's going to put into place this year. The offense, it has to be better because there's nowhere to go but up. Russ has to be better because there's nowhere to go but up. He was wide receiver 8 in the last 6 weeks of the season last season. The quietest 970 plus yards you will get from a fantasy football receiver. He was like 25 or something yards short of 1,000 yards last year. So the fact that he's able to come back in with a better coach, with a better game plan, with a hopefully better quarterback execution. I mean, for the first 10 weeks, he saw the 3rd lowest rate of catchable targets, which means he didn't have a lot to work with in those first 10 weeks. Then the last few weeks, he actually played very, very well. And once they got in a rhythm. So I expect a little bit more from Jerry Jeudy to the point where he didn't have a great season last year. But I mean, again, quietly decent. And he might be an opportunity to buy low on the stock of Jerry Jeudy. I'm kind of skipping over Courtland Sutton because I don't know how I feel about Courtland Sutton and, that sort of thing. But I think Jeudy has a chance to be the top receiver on this team, potentially.
Yeah, I have a couple. I have some thoughts that lead into maybe you being right, but also some concerns. So, like Jerry Jeudy, phenomenal route runner, kind of reminds me of Michael Thomas a little bit. Obviously, Michael Thomas had historical seasons under Sean Payton in New Orleans, but then I think about the quarterback play.
Mm-hmm.
Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, even when they're successful, are so wildly different quarterbacks and how they're successful.
Yeah.
That like Michael Thomas was like quick timing, get the ball out to him. Drew Brees, put it accurately, put it on the money, timing, be aware of everything. And that's not really who Russ has been.
That's the big question too.
Russ likes to hang on the ball. He likes to do a little magic, do a little this, do a little that. He's not really that guy. Jerry Jeudy right now is like going around wide receiver 24 from what I've seen, near guys like Christian Watson, Drake London, Mike Williams of the Chargers, Chris Godwin, Christian Kirk. Like that seems like the right spot for him. I don't think, my thing is like, I think other people are with you and like, they still believe in Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, he was they take him number 10 overall or something like that.
He hasn't performed up to the value of his overall draft status.
Not even close. He's had a few injuries here and there as well with like ankles and stuff like that. But I think Jerry Jeudy has the potential, but you're also adding Tim Patrick into that mix again, who was out all last year.
Yep.
So that might take some targets away from Jeudy. I don't know. I think obviously they value Jeudy, and I think Jeudy. I don't like Courtland Sutton at all in fantasy. I wouldn't touch Courtland Sutton with a 10-foot pole. I'm not against taking Jeudy, even though he burned me in one league last year. Not burned, but like
could have been
some monster weeks late, but he was so bad for a long time. Because that offense was just so bad for a long time. So we'll see with Jeudy. We'll see.
There's a lot. I think the Broncos probably are one of the biggest question marks in the NFL just across the board of like, you're taking a team that was not well coached last year, inserting a coach with a new philosophy, with a new everything else. You have players that are healthy going like it. I don't like it's a complete question. It could be a complete train wreck again. Or it could be a season where they could potentially creep into a wild card. I don't know. Like, it could be anywhere in between. Like, I don't know. And that's the crazy thing about it. Like, and so the stock on the Broncos players, especially like a Jerry Jeudy, could be interesting. You're buying speculatively. It's like stocks, right? You kind of figure out like this could pay off for me, but you have to be ready for it not to, kind of thing. But if it does, it's insane value that you're going to get.
Chris, there's a guy going later in drafts than Jeudy in Tyler Lockett. Everyone hates Tyler Lockett.
By the way,
why does everyone hate Tyler Lockett?
He's in my boring category. No one likes the name of Tyler Lockett because he's boring, and I think he's going to be on every one of my lists.
4 straight 1,000-yard seasons.
Every single one.
5 seasons ago, he was 965. He was 35 yards short of 1,000. So almost 5 straight seasons of 1,000 yards. He catches anywhere from 8 to 10 touchdowns every season in that. And he goes like wide receiver 31. Like everyone, it just doesn't, he's like boring to people for some reason, or like everyone's like, oh, DK Metcalf's the guy.
He's not the sexy pick.
DK Metcalf's the guy in Seattle, and I'm just like, DK Metcalf's a monster, and I get why, but like also DK Metcalf had worse fantasy numbers last year than the last 2 years almost. He didn't have 1,000 yards 2 years ago. He had 1,048 last year. He did have a monster year, and like his best year, 1,303. But he's in between 6 and 12 touchdowns every year. So like DK Metcalf's going at wide receiver 15, and you have Tyler Lockett going wide receiver 31, and they're like 1A, 1B in Seattle. So riddle me that, Chris.
I was
Someone
listening.
help me out.
I was listening to the Ringer Fantasy Pod the other day, and they were talking about Lockett. They're like, he's like. It's like when you go out, like there's sexier picks out there, and Nick's like, oh, puts my boy Lockett. He's not boring. Like he's not the sexy pick,
I don't
though.
think he's boring, but
no, but I think other people do.
Undervalued for a reason.
But people are like, oh, there's sexier picks out there, like wide receiver wise, and it's like, no, they did this analogy of like, go home to your wife. Like there's always sexy women out at the club and stuff. Just go home to your wife. It's always better when you got that good stability of production and everything else. Like, so when you're out there, you know, at the club and you see that sexy wide receiver and everything else, just remember, just go home to your wife, and you'll be way happier. You'll be way happier with what you're getting, right? Like, don't get tempted into some of these other. Go with the Locketts. Go with the Nick Chubbs. Go with some of these other guys that like just don't sound like, you know, oh, they're not going to be. Just don't overthink it. You know, that's all. That's all we're saying. Scotty, do you have any other ones you wanted to add in before?
No, I finished off with Lockett there.
Yeah,
I think I'm good.
I like Lockett
I mean,
a lot.
I could go all day with sleepers.
Well, we can do an official sleep. And here's the thing. Our sleeper segment is probably going to overlap quite a bit with a lot of the players we had. I've had Nick Chubb for 3 years straight. Love him. That's what I'm saying. STG. That's what I was talking about. He's just nothing but consistent. But yet people get mesmerized by some of these other running backs, these rookie running backs that are coming into the league and overdrafting and this and that. Like, don't do it. Just go with what you know.
Bijan Robinson.
Go home to your wife.
Oh, I'll be back, Chris.
Yeah. So yeah, like that's what I'm saying. That's it's just as simple as that. But that's gonna put a wrap on buying the dip in our fantasy focus. So tonight we covered all of the top players, the cream of the crop, the players that you need to have that are just absolutely gonna crush for you all season long. And we covered all the players whose stock is at the all-time low that you should probably get some value out of. So, I hope you guys are enjoying these fantasy focused segments. We're going to keep these rolling because we wanted to put more of an emphasis. We know you guys are asking for football. We know you guys are asking for more fantasy content. And I hope you guys are enjoying the commentary and enjoying all of their thoughts on these players going into the NFL season.